3, 2, 1.
I'm Drift, Lucky Walker Kid. Let me tell you what I did. I made a promise, then I hid. I'm Drift, Lucky Walker Kid. I'm Drift, Lucky Walker Kid. Let me tell you what I did. I fell off a bridge into a light beam. I'll share it with you to help get it right. I'm Drift, Lucky Walker Kid. I'm Drift, Lucky Walker Kid. I'm Drift, Lucky Walker Kid. Welcome back. This is the 9th episode of Musical Chairs Ozmozezz, the live book reading. We're recording this on Sunday, 8/2. This is for the 8/1 reading, or August 1st, 2020 reading. Faith behind the camera.
Hi there.
Say hi, Faith.
Hi, Faith.
We're trying to have fun today. We had a real busy day yesterday. Didn't get to this. We apologize. But we're recording it today. So we are going to remind you that Faith's perspective comes at the end of each chapter. We're still in chapter 1. I'm going to continue here in just a minute. Briefly review what we've done so far. So last week we went through some of the first parts of chapter 1. I'm going to just keep going and just briefly touch on those so we can kind of get back into the feel of it. We covered that I fell backwards from the railroad trestle head first, that I fell and that time stopped. I kind of floated above my body. I was held in place, so I wasn't just floating. I noticed I was being held, and I was being held by a bright white light. But first, before I knew that, there was like a veil of light that I could see through. So I go into that, the veil of light. I was comforted. I was really afraid at first, but then I was comforted. I left my body and I went out of body. That's why in this painting, there's a blue line here that has little lines intersecting. Those lines that are intersecting are me kind of coming in and out, leveling off and looking around with my arms and legs to kind of remind me what I did back then. That's why I painted that. The energy changed from bright white light to other colors. I could feel like I was going to other places in the light, that I was being guided and held and comforted all at the same time. There was a point here where we left off is right here. So last week we left off right here. The bright white light wanted to watch my life with me and needed my approval. I don't know how to convey this in any other way, but to tell you that somehow we were communicating with each other, and you know everything the bright white light is thinking, and the light knows everything you're thinking. I knew this was the beautiful place I left a long time ago to go on my obstacle course. I was home and I was in the presence of our Father of Light. Our Father of Light, the bright white light, wanted to look through my eyes. I realized the light, our Father, the bright white light, God, the Great Spirit, the Source, are all the same thing. Just like when I called my earthly father, the bachelor, the uncle, the brothers, the fiancé, the light had many names. As soon as I felt okay with knowing this, the light was looking through my eyes. I could feel the energy of our Father come into me in my spiritual eyes. The beginning part of what I call osmosis started. I felt linked to the bright white light and was instantly filled with my entire life story. That is when I began to watch my life with our Father watching through my eyes. As we watched, I knew He was all-knowing, all-seeing, all-loving, and everything our Father knew, I now knew. The second part of osmosis had taken place. I had been filled with the same information. I was filled with the spiritual knowing. We entered the most beautiful place. We were in the garden where all are linked to our Father, the bright white light. We watched every scene of my life together, backwards to before my birth. The details amazed me as soon as I noticed that not one detail had been missed. We watched from every angle, every detail, and every second. Nothing is missed because we are being recorded from all angles with the perspectives of others included at all times. I think it is done by reflection, but I can only guess. I was amazed at the fact of someone recording my life from every possible angle, every possible detail, and in such an unknown way that it baffles me to this day. Since being in His presence, I have been aware that we all have a most loving Father, and He was recording me. I think God records all our lives for us to watch and learn. We watched every scene of my life. It was all in order. As we were watching, I knew what others felt around me while we watched my life together. We watched from present moments to past ones, and my life was in perfect order. Our Father knows everything because He is part of everything, records everything, and then He shares what we watched and recorded with us. It reminded me of when my son was born and we picked up a video camera. I caught every moment of what our son did as much as I could with that high 8 camera. It was a video camera. It seems the bright white light has much more advanced equipment. The equipment is invisible. Our Father, while recording us, is invisible. Every other person filming every other perspective that I can watch, they are all invisible. Yet Father and I are watching this most beautiful show in the most beautiful place, and I had no idea of the production going on around me because it was all invisible to me throughout my life here. How come no one ever asks how it's done? I didn't ask how it was done because I'm still in awe of it being done. I realized everything is alive. I watched every single detail out of my past. Our Father and I watched my entire life backwards, one scene at a time. As instantly as I left my body, I watched back to my birth, but it took as long to watch as it did to live each scene of my life. I watched with our Father watching with me through my eyes, and I also remembered my sister. My sister and I were in front of an entity, and I was sent here first, her second. I received the low road, and she received the high road. While I was receiving information on what to do and what was going to happen to me on my obstacle course, 2 entities linked to an entity in front of us grabbed me from behind. They threw me here to my birth. I thought of Earth as a junkyard when I arrived. Compared to how beautiful our home is in our Father's garden, where I watched my life with the bright white light, this junkyard with the landscape is cluttered. It has wires, poles, roads, buildings, cities, cars, trucks, trains, ships, and the garbage is deplorable, whether it's one piece or piles of it. I was really sad at first. I wanted to go back home where my Father loved me. How could my loving Father have sent me to this horrible place without any love? It would all make perfect sense to me while I was in the light. Our Father and I watched my previous lives, and I realized we are light. We can come and go, but are tied here to the side of the veil until certain criteria are met, or until your time is up. Accidents are not always what they seem because they can be overturned. My life in the light was about to end as I realized I was sent here to change things like everyone else. Everyone is sent here to save themselves, to save others, to save life of all types and at all costs in certain circumstances. I know certain beliefs are wrong because it is fair for self-proclaimed chosen ones to eradicate others who are not like them because they don't believe the same. These folks are not from the bright white light. They may have been from the light at one point, but they have been turned and have chosen the path of power. They hold other people's lives to be less important because of their beliefs in their power over God's power, and soon find they will need to gain more power by putting others down, hurting them or their property, or killing them even. We do not honor the ones who do not give all God's children honor. Their ending will be most horrific for all to see. I started to see it in the future. I was watching the future with delight, and it was like I had always known these things, and then everything changed. I was amazed to be able to watch the future. Have you ever seen the future? I mean, suddenly there it was in front of me. I'm pulled from above, and as instantly as I left my body and as I was watching the future, I was right back in my body again. I noticed right away that I was back here, where I fell from, and I teeter-tottered back and forth on the timber. I didn't wait to see if I would fall again, and lunged at the timber. Literally, I grabbed around it. I held on for quite a while. I thanked our Father. I thanked the bright white light. Over and over, I just sat there and like hugged this timber. It was all greasy and creosote, and didn't bother me though. I was still on the earth and not in this other place. I patted my head. I patted all over myself. I got up and climbed up to the northern part of the trestle where it was open and level, where the timbers made a ledge for me to walk on. I patted myself down more. I patted my head. What just happened to me? I looked around to see if anyone was watching, like as if I tripped over a crack in the sidewalk. I was worried if anybody saw me in the light. I don't know why I would have been worried, but that's one of my first thoughts. I touched around my neck and my head and all over. I patted myself from head to toe, literally. I had to have hit the ground, but I'm okay. Why am I okay? I patted all over my arms again. I went up and down my body over and over again to see if something was wrong or if I was still in the light. Was I still in the bright white light? I climbed over to where the horizontal timbers hung over like a ledge a little bit more towards the edge, and I stood calmly and stopped patting myself down all over. I needed to thank whoever, whatever. What was that? What was it? What just happened to me? Wow. I couldn't get over the thought that a light just did that for me. I looked north and decided to stop patting myself down. And I just kept thinking, a light did all this. And I was a light. I was in the light. I could see the townhomes in this dimension again from the timber ledge of the train trestle. I realized I was back after feeling my earthly body. It finally struck a chord with me that I had been patting my body down all over again to see if I was real, and I realized I could feel it again. So I knew I was back on Earth. I just watched my whole life, though. I must have been gone a long time. I was 14 years old at the time, and I watched every single detail. It took 14 years for me to watch it all over again when I watched. I realized I must have missed dinner. A few days, maybe 14 years. My mom and stepdad are going to be mad that I wasn't home for dinner or gone for 14 years. I realized and was back into focusing on the bright white light, and that I saw every detail and dilly-dallied around going forward and reverse, watching scenes over and over to remember. While I was in my near-death experience, I literally could rewind and watch again, and then go to another perspective and watch and feel what that person felt when they were recording it for us. That's the best I can describe it. I couldn't help it. I was in the light. I'll tell them that. I'll tell my folks. I'll tell them that I'm late for dinner because I fell off a train trestle and into a bright white light. Just like in my little intro song. I'll tell them that I actually didn't fall all the way because I was held and comforted by a bright white light. I'll tell them I saw my whole life and know my real father visited me and that I visited him. And that you, stepdad, I looked right at my stepdad and I told him, you aren't my father. You see, I remember when my father let me drive the car, his car, on the way to drop me off at your house to visit with you and Mom. I was always in visitation either at your house, in other words, my mom and stepdad's house, or at my pop's house, or at my pop's parents' house, or his brother's house, but I was always visiting somewhere. I remembered my real father driving me to drop me off at the trailer park, where my mom and stepdad lived, and shared that with my stepdad and mom at that moment. I remembered my father used to let me drive the car when we were close to dropping me off. I stood and looked north and thanked the bright white light for saving me, for holding me in time, for comforting and loving me. I thank the bright white light for recording my life and watching it with me. I thank the bright white light for loving me. I cried because I remembered how good it felt to be in his presence and how much punishment lay ahead for me after I shared what I knew with my stepdad and who wasn't my father. I got down on my knee up on the timber ledge and began to pray. I was still a little dizzy after the experience, what we now call a near-death experience. I thought it better to climb down the trestle since I was a little bit dizzy, and I did down to the water line. I jumped over the very rocks I would have surely hit with my head if not for the intervention of the bright white light. It felt okay to be alive, but I was bummed out not to be in the garden. It was so beautiful. I was about to land on land again. I already missed the garden, the love, and our Father, the bright white light. After my feet hit solid ground, I got down on my knee and I bowed my head. I didn't care about being late for dinner. I recited the Lord's Prayer quite a few times on the ground and on one knee. My spiritual experience in the presence of the bright white light far exceeded my life with Mom and stepdad. I was in the presence of my real father. He showed me my earthly father and his brother. He showed me my earthly father's parents, the parents before them. I was shown my Nana, my playtime, her whistling teapot. All because of the bright white light, I remembered my real father's side of the family. I thanked the bright white light, and I promised to share my story. My mom and stepdad delayed this long enough, as they did that evening when they punished me after I told them that I remembered my real father. Both my little half-brothers were present at the dinner table, along with our dear mom, as I told everyone about the bright white light. My little half-brothers heard me that evening. They heard me tell mom and stepdad that I was saved by a bright white light. At the time, I used the word light. I told them all that I also remembered my real father, who let me drive his car. My stepdad punched me in the face and sent me to my bed without dinner. He told me I could not take my bullshit. He told me he could not take my bullshit story, and he thought it would be nice if I went to bed hungry all night long, and then they all laughed at me. I have to rewrite that. They always laughed at me, and they still do to this day. Their laughter was heard but never felt as I was growing up. It was more a relief to not eat with them than it was a punishment. It is all about your perspective. I went to my bedroom and never brought it up to these unbelievers again until our first book. Without letting my family take our time any longer, please accept my apology, but I had to mention them for others to know why I could forget such an all-loving, all-knowing experience. I'm glad to have moved on and to stay away from them all. Mom and stepdad's punishment kept my loving bright white light experience locked up inside me until I turned 40 years old in 2001. It was their punishment that kept me from remembering. It was their punishment that kept me from remembering my father, too. This changed when I denied my mom the chance to hurt my son. It changed the vibration in his life, my mom's and stepdad's lives, and I was able to stay away from them. I began to remember what they did to me, but this was just the very beginning in 2000. I stayed away from them and would learn why in the coming years. How are we doing on time, Faith?
Almost 17 minutes.
So let's stop there, and we'll pick up with Chapter 10 next week on page 60. And we'll see you next week. Faith, you want to say anything?
Thanks for watching, you guys.
Thanks for watching, everyone. We really love it that you tune in. It picks us up even if one person comes and watches our little video. We know they're a little basic yet, but wait till you see when they're a little bit more fixed up. We have to start like this just to get the message out. We thank you again. We'll see you next week for the 10th episode of Musical Chairs Ozmozezz. This is Drift Lucky Walker Kid and
Faith Keeper.
Thanks. God
Thanks.
bless.
Bye. 3, 2.
Get her out. Just